Hello everyone, hope you all can hear me. My name is Rachel. I'm one of the nurses here on our support line at Pancreatic Cancer UK. A very big warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening. Great to have you with us. I'm really looking forward to the next hour and a half. Before we get going, I just wanted to go over some very quick housekeeping things. So there will be half an hour at the end of the webinar for a question and answer session. So you should see a Q&A icon on your screen. It looks like two speech bubbles. So to ask a question, just type it into that box, and please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. There's no need to wait until the end. You can choose to ask a question anonymously if you'd prefer to do that. And you can also upvote questions by clicking on the thumbs up button there. Some of you may have some really specific, highly specific questions that perhaps fall outside of the scope of today's webinar. So that we can keep the questions that we answer relevant to as many people that are joining, we ask that we might reply in the Q&A to you individually, and this might involve signposting to support or information, or perhaps encouraging you to call our support line rather than reading your question aloud. So we hope you'll understand that, but obviously we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. If you're joining from outside the UK, you're very welcome. But please keep in mind that the information we will give will be based on the UK healthcare system, so we won't be able to advise on options elsewhere today. We also have some health professionals joining. Again, great to have you with us. But today's webinar is primarily for people with a personal connection to pancreatic cancer. So just to be mindful of that when asking questions. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our website afterwards, if you'd like to watch it back or share it with other people who might be interested. Great, so hopefully that's all of those bits out of the way, and we can get going. I'm going to begin by explaining a bit about what Pancreatic Cancer UK is all about, focusing primarily on the support that we provide here at the charity to anybody affected by pancreatic cancer. So our overall mission is to transform the future for everyone with pancreatic cancer, whether this is through funding research into what we hope will be breakthroughs in terms of early diagnosis and treatments, whether it's campaigning and lobbying for change in relation to pathways, waiting times, and variations that we see in care, or by bringing together a strong community of patients, carers, health professionals, researchers, and influencers to take on pancreatic cancer together. Ultimately, our overarching vision is that everyone with pancreatic cancer survives to live long and well. So Pancreatic Cancer UK's message is clear, that we want to be there to support people impacted by pancreatic cancer, whether they are directly affected or if their family member is, or perhaps a friend. And ideally, we would like people to know rather about the services that we offer from the time a person is first diagnosed. We know how difficult that time can be. So our most well-known means of support is our national support line, and this is run by a team of specialist pancreatic nurses, of which I'm one. We have all worked within the NHS previously. Some of us have worked as nurse specialists caring for patients with pancreatic cancer. Others of us have cared for pancreatic cancer patients in the chemotherapy or surgical setting. So together, we have a great deal of experience. And there are many reasons why people might call our support line. Some people call us saying something along the lines of, I've just been diagnosed and I just don't know what to do. And they're possibly just back from an appointment or have come off a phone call, and they may be in a state of shock at the news, or have not taken in the information that they've been given, or maybe unsure about what the next steps are. They may have questions, or perhaps struggling to understand all the medical terminology that might have been used. And it can be really helpful for people in these situations to call us, so that we've got time, we have got time, to go through things and explain things in detail. And perhaps when hospital staff may not have that time to give, through best intentions, we can answer questions, and hopefully we'll be able to offer some practical suggestions. It can be useful for someone to speak to us, as we are independent of any NHS team, and people are free to ask what they may consider to be silly questions. They never are silly questions, but people sometimes feel a bit easier to do that. Other reasons why people may call our support line may be to discuss treatment options, for example, chemotherapy. So it might be their first treatment, and they might have many questions about chemotherapy, how it's given, what the common side effects are, and really would like to discuss their worries and concerns about that. So many people call us also because they or their family members are struggling with managing physical symptoms. So this might be things such as pain or nausea and sickness. And we can explore this in more detail and hopefully make suggestions for a way forward. One caller might say, I'm really struggling with diarrhea, I've lost my appetite, and I'm scared I'm losing too much weight. And one of the most common reasons why people call us is because they are struggling with loss of appetite and loss of weight. So we can provide information on diet and nutrition. And these calls often involve conversations on pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy, or PERT, which I know we'll be hearing much more about shortly. We recognise that it can be really helpful for a person to speak to the same nurse, so we try our best to ensure that the same nurse stays with a person through everything and gets to know that person and their situation. After a call, we're more than happy to provide personalised information by email or by post, helping to summarise what we've chatted through and possibly explaining what the next step might be. We often organise follow-up calls too, and many people call us on numerous occasions. And of course, we encourage people to be in touch as they need. We see it as a massive privilege to get to know people and families at a time that is often very tough. And our priority is ensuring that people don't feel alone, but that they know we are there for them as and when they need. We appreciate how devastating a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer is, and you can be assured of our help, care and support. It's a brave thing to do, to call, and we appreciate that it's not an easy thing to do, to pick up the phone, especially at first when perhaps a person doesn't know what to expect. We do have lovely feedback from people that call. One person has said, it was like a lifeline to me in my darkest moment. It's an amazing service and I can't speak highly enough of it. Also, to stress that we're also on email. For some people, they much prefer email, and that works better for them. They feel a bit more comfortable with that, and that is completely fine as well. Prior to the pandemic, we were offering face-to-face support days or half days, but we're unable to do that at present. So we've developed a programme of virtual support. And these support sessions happen via Zoom, and these are for anybody impacted by pancreatic cancer. And this has actually been great in lots of ways. Some people that perhaps couldn't join a face-to-face event have been able to join, so that's been great. These sessions focus on a variety of topics, from things such as nutrition and pancreatic enzymes to chemotherapy to surgery, and we try and run one of these sessions each week, and then we also have a family, friends and carers cuppa each month. We know how valuable and helpful it can be for people to talk to and share with others going through a similar situation. We're constantly thinking about how best these sessions can support people, taking into consideration the feedback that we receive. And these are just quotes from some of the feedback that we've received from people that have joined the sessions. So I'll just give you a short minute just to read some of those. It's really great to hear that these things are so helpful for people. And then this slide is shows some quotes about what people who joined the sessions would say to another person who was thinking about coming along. Yeah, that's quite a bit to read there. Hopefully you can get the gist. I think these really highlight that a person can choose to contribute as much or as little as they feel comfortable with. There's no pressure at all. Many people might not come across another person who has pancreatic cancer, and we might notice this even more so now due to COVID-19. So people are often really struck by how good it can be to share and relate to people going through similar difficulties. We know that good quality information is really important, and it plays such a vital part in understanding your own or your loved one's condition. We recognise that people have different information needs, both as an individual and also at different stages. Some people may wish to know lots, some may wish to know less. And it can be overwhelming at first when a person is first told the news of their diagnosis. They're often in shock, understandably so, and will only be able to absorb information in small chunks. And we have a range of publications, things from our newly diagnosed packs to our booklet on fatigue, and more specific information on things such as managing diabetes. And this information is often good to dip in and out of as needs change. And you can order the publications via our website, or there's lots you can download there, or you're also really welcome to call our support line and ask us to order and post out any publications to you. This slide just shows a few examples of some other publications we offer, really quite relevant to what we're talking about this evening. One is a picture of the inside of our, a little fold out card showing the different kinds of support we have available. And this can be really helpful for anybody that has recently been diagnosed. The other two are helpful sources of information relating to digestive difficulties that someone may be experiencing, and how this can be managed with pancreatic enzymes if that's appropriate. The white fact sheet there explains all about pancreatic enzymes, what they are, the dose to take and how to take it correctly. And this might be something you wish to take a look at after today's webinar. Yeah, we'll be covering all this very soon as well. Another support service that we have available here at the charity is called Side by Side. And in a nutshell, this links up a person that is due to undergo surgery or has recently undergone surgery with a trained volunteer that has also undergone surgery for pancreatic cancer previously. and the two people speak on the phone. This might be a one-off call or a series of calls, depending on what is needed. And we recognise how valuable people find talking to someone that has gone through surgery, and being able to ask questions and discuss their anxieties with someone that has gone through it before can help somebody enormously. And yeah, this is just some quotes about what people have said that have used side by side. We also have our online discussion forum, which is a supportive place where anybody affected by pancreatic cancer can be there for one another. It's a place where you can discuss everything from how to navigate through the hospital system to how you talk to your family about your diagnosis. It's a community of supportive and compassionate individuals who can really relate to an individual's situation and offer support and a listening ear. And finally, I really wanted just to highlight our current Transform Lives Prescribe campaign to you. Many of you may have come across this already, and hopefully have done. Briefly, this campaign is all about ensuring that people with pancreatic cancer that require pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy or PERT have it prescribed, and have it prescribed as near to the point of their diagnosis as possible. So many people depend on PERT as their means of effectively absorbing the food they eat. So they are incredibly important, and we'll be hearing more about that soon from Rachel. We're calling for the NHS to ensure PERT is prescribed for everybody who needs it. And we would love you to sign our petition and share the campaign too with others that you know. You can access the petition via our website or on social media as well. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that was helpful to hear about ways in which we can help support you. We would love to be in touch with you on our support line or in other ways too. Okay, so as we continue into the main bit of the webinar, we're going to watch a short video with Jeni, who is one of the other PC UK specialist nurses that works on the support line.
Diet and pancreatic cancer. Hi, I'm Jeni. I'm one of the specialist nurses at Pancreatic Cancer UK, and I provide support and information to all those affected by pancreatic cancer. Why does pancreatic cancer cause problems with diet? The pancreas plays an important part in digesting food. It produces enzymes which help us to break our food down so that it can be used properly by the body. Pancreatic cancer can reduce the number of enzymes a person produces, or it can affect them getting to where they need to be. This can lead to problems with digestion and absorption of food. You may have symptoms such as constipation or diarrhea. You may get bloating in your tummy, maybe some cramps, feeling full up quickly, so even after eating a few mouthfuls of food. You may lose weight even though you're eating quite well. You may have problems with oily, greasy, pale poo, which doesn't flush down the toilet very easily.
I noticed I was becoming malnourished because I was getting very lethargic. I'd lost more weight. I was getting a lot of diarrhea, which was becoming a concern.
I had very loose stools. I was having to go to the toilet. Oops, excuse me, off I go. Just like that. There was no period of grace. I had to go then and there. And I was feeling nauseous all the time.
How are these symptoms managed? There is something that can be done to help these symptoms. we can take capsules which are called pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy capsules, and these will replace the enzymes that your pancreas would normally make. You take pancreatic enzyme capsules each time you eat. They can help to digest your food and help with the symptoms. Some of the common brands that are used are called Creon, Pancrease, Pancrex and Nutrizyme.
Creon really has changed my life. The one thing that's changed my life. Unfortunately, they're kind of ungainly pills to swallow, and I have to take 6 or 7 or 8 every meal. But that's a small price to pay for having virtually a symptom-free life now.
Who can help you manage your symptoms? Your doctor or nurse can help you manage your symptoms. Pancreatic cancer can make managing diet quite tricky, so it might be helpful to ask for a referral to a specialist dietitian. A dietitian is a professional who provides expert advice about diet and nutrition. They can talk to you about pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy and how to manage your diet and nutrition. Pancreatic cancer can also cause diabetes, which can cause your blood sugars to become high. The dietitian can also help you to manage these symptoms. A dietitian can support you in making changes to your diet if you're losing weight. They can discuss how to add more calories and protein into the food that you're eating. If you haven't seen a specialist dietitian, speak to your doctor or nurse and they may be able to arrange a referral for you. Not every hospital will have a specialist pancreatic dietitian, but they will have other dietitians who may be able to talk to you about your symptoms.
Most people, when they seek a dietitian, the dietitian will advise you on a healthy diet, a balanced diet, of calories, proteins, etc., etc. But going through treatment, a dietitian will tell you, gain as many calories and consume as many calories as you possibly can. Seeing my dietitian was eye-opening. They gave me fantastic advice about richer foods to eat, upping the dose of the enzymes, where I could consume more calories by my favourite foods.
On the Pancreatic Cancer UK website, we have a lot of information about diet and pancreatic cancer. This also includes some very good information about pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. Pancreatic Cancer UK also run a support line, which is manned by specialist nurses. We can help you with advice about your symptoms and also in speaking to your medical team. You can call us on 0808 801 0707, or you can email us on nurse@pancreaticcancer.org.uk.
Okay, so hopefully you found that helpful. It's now my pleasure to introduce Rachel Caddy, who is one of the specialist dietitians in Liverpool, who sees pancreatic cancer patients very frequently within her job. And then I will pass over to Rachel.
Hopefully you can, thank you Rachel, hopefully you can see my screen there.
Yeah, we can see it. Thanks, Rachel.
Excellent. My name is Rachel, I'm a dietitian, I work at the Royal Hospital in Liverpool. Currently on maternity leave, but I've teamed up with Pancreatic Cancer UK to deliver this session today. What we'll go through today is what I do as a dietitian, the role of the pancreas, impact of pancreatic cancer, pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy, type 3C diabetes, eating with pancreatic cancer, treatment side effects, and a quick myth-busting section. Lots to get through, so I'll crack on. So dietitians are qualified and regulated health professionals that assess, diagnose and treat dietary and nutritional problems at a individual and wider public health level. We are regulated by the Health and Care Professions Council. And as a dietitian, I work with people who have pancreatic conditions, including people with pancreatic cancer. So as a dietitian, what I'm aiming to do with the people that I see, especially those with pancreatic cancer, is to optimize somebody's nutritional status. So usually this means building their strength prior to some further treatments, such as chemotherapy or surgery. with a focus on maintaining quality of life. So the pancreas is an organ that's about 6 inches long, that sits behind the stomach, and it has a really important role in digestion. So during digestion, the pancreas will make digestive fluids, which help to absorb our food properly. And the pancreas will also make hormones that help to manage our blood glucose levels correctly. And we'll go into this in a little more detail shortly. So macronutrients are foods that we eat in a significant amount to provide our body with energy. Carbohydrates are one of the macronutrients, and we find carbohydrates in foods such as bread and bread products like chapati or naan, cereals, pasta, rice, and potatoes. And carbohydrates are a really important source of energy for the body. Protein foods include meat and fish, eggs, nuts, beans and pulses such as lentils or baked beans, and soy foods such as tofu. And protein is really important for wound healing and for helping to build strength, so build muscle. And fats. Fats tend to fall into 2 categories. You have your unsaturated fats, which are found in foods like oily fish, and in nuts, in avocados, and in olive oils like oils like olive oil. And then we have saturated fats. So these tend to be hard at room temperature like butter, and saturated fats are also found in foods such as cheese, biscuits, cakes, chocolate, etc. So fats are really important. So they build your cell membranes, and they also provide us with lots and lots of calories. So lots of energy whenever we eat foods that have got fat in them. They also help food to taste really good as well. So it's really important that you're continuing to include fat within your diet. So whenever we eat, our foods travel down the esophagus into the stomach, and then from here they move to the top part of the small bowel, the duodenum. Now, the pancreas also links with the duodenum to release those digestive fluids that I previously mentioned. So included in those digestive fluids are enzymes. So enzymes are made within the pancreas, and they travel along this pancreatic duct here, this main duct, to be released into the duodenum to mix with the macronutrients of food that we eat. And those enzymes are used to help break down our foods into small enough pieces so we can absorb those foods. So different enzymes will help to break down different macronutrients. So amylase will help to break down carbohydrates. Protease will break down your proteins, and lipase will help to break down our fats. Fats also need a bit of extra help being broken down, and that is from bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. And when the enzymes work, they break the food down into small enough pieces, so single nutrients, to allow the rest of the small bowel to absorb those nutrients, which then can be used by the body as fuel. But what we can see in pancreatic cancer is that maybe the cells that are making those enzymes, they don't make, they're damaged and they're not making enough enzymes anymore. Or there's a blockage, so those enzymes can't get to where they need to go. They can't get to the duodenum, the top of the small bowel here, to mix with the nutrients and break them down. So rather than the food being broken down and being absorbed, what we see is the enzymes can't work properly, or there isn't enough of them anymore, and those nutrients can't be absorbed. We call this malabsorption. Malabsorption is really common in pancreatic cancer, and symptoms that we often see are pale, oily, greasy stools that can be very loose and very difficult to flush away. They can be very, very smelly. You can get lots of abdominal pain, bloating, feeling full very, very quickly. Urgency, so running to the toilet quite quickly without any warning. And then alongside all of these symptoms, we can see weight loss. So when somebody is malabsorbing, they're at a higher risk of malnutrition. So when the body's malabsorbing, it's almost like it's starving, because the nutrients that are being put in there can't be absorbed and they can't be utilized properly. So the body can start to use its own stores as fuel, so its own stores of fat and of protein. And this will lead to weight loss. When I speak with patients about weight loss, I also speak about strength loss, because when somebody loses weight very quickly, they lose lots of muscle, and therefore they lose lots of strength. And what we see alongside this is lots of weakness and fatigue. It can impact on somebody's immune system, so they're more likely to pick up infections. And because people are often too weak or fatigued to do the things that they enjoy, then this can really impact on their quality of life. We also know if somebody is malnourished, this can affect how well they tolerate their treatment. So if somebody is well nourished going into treatment such as chemotherapy, they're likely to tolerate it better compared to somebody who is not well nourished. And if somebody is well nourished going into a surgery, they're more likely to recover quicker following surgery. So anybody can be malnourished, and this should never be diagnosed based on body mass index alone. So body mass index is a measure of how healthy somebody's weight is for how tall they are. And what if your body mass index puts you in the overweight or the very overweight category? You can still become malnourished if you've lost a significant amount of weight, so more than 10% of your body weight in a very short period, so a period of weeks. So as a dietitian, I work with people who are malabsorbing due to pancreatic cancer and are at a higher risk of malnutrition to try and stop or reverse the malnutrition, to improve their nutritional status, to get them ready for their upcoming treatment and to impact positively on their quality of life. And the way that I do that is by speaking with patients about eating and drinking as well as they possibly can, but also about taking their pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy tablets in the best way. So pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy are a tablet that will replace the enzymes that the pancreas normally make. And because those enzymes aren't being made by the pancreas anymore, or they're unable to get to where they need to be to work properly, the pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy tablets replace those enzymes. So they work in the same way. So there's different type of enzymes. And as a dietitian, I work with people who need to take PERT tablets to make sure they're taking them in the best way. But I also work with doctors to make sure that they are prescribing the correct dose. So with somebody with pancreatic cancer, what research has shown is that taking PERT may enhance quality of life. It may improve overall survival. They may obtain a better symptom score, and they may tolerate their treatment better. And when taken correctly, what we're aiming for is an adequate absorption of nutrients, reduction of symptoms of malabsorption, formed normal colour stools with weight maintenance or weight regain if appropriate, and overall an improved quality of life. So when I speak with patients about taking their pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy, what I go through is that PERT tablets should be taken with any meal, any snack, and any drinks that are nourishing. And that includes any milky drinks. Our starting dose is usually 50,000 to 75,000 units per meal. And that will be 2 to 3 capsules of the 25,000 unit capsules. If you are taking PERT but you've been prescribed the 10,000 unit capsules, I'd recommend going to your GP and ask to be switched to the larger tablets just to reduce the amount of tablets that you have to take per meal, which is then impacting on your quality of life. So enzymes, the PERT tablet should be taken at the start and through the meal if possible. With any snacks, we recommend minimum 25 to 50,000 units, so 1 to 2 tablets per snack, and same for any nourishing drinks. So anything that's made with more than half milk, so a cappuccino, a latte, a milkshake, a hot chocolate, anything like that, treat those as a snack and take your snack dose of your PERT tablets. If now I've put here that these are minimum doses because this is a starting dose, and what we can see is once people are started on a starting dose but they're still getting symptoms of malabsorption, we increase that dose, and I talk to patients about how to do that. So always swallow PERT with a cold drink, never a hot one, as if they get too hot then they don't work, the enzymes get denatured and they don't work properly. Ideally, if you can, swallow them whole. If you're taking more than 1 capsule, try and spread those throughout the meal. So if somebody, for example, is taking 3 capsules of the meal, I will say take 2 at the beginning and 1 halfway through. If you can't swallow the tablets whole, they can be opened, and the tiny balls inside the microspheres can be mixed with something acidic, so yogurt or fruit puree or tomato sauce. And it's the acidic medium that the little microspheres will now be mixed into will help to get those little balls to the top part of the bowel, the duodenum, to the place where they will start working. Now, if you do open the capsules, then make sure that you rinse your mouth really well afterwards with a mouthful of cold water. Because if any of those tiny balls are on the inside of your mouth, then they're going to cause some irritation. But ideally, if you can, they're best taken whole. Make sure that your enzyme tablets are stored at room temperature. If it's very hot on the 2 or 3 days of the Great British Summer, then make sure that your enzyme tablets are not sat in the windowsill in direct sunlight or in glove compartments in a very hot car, or even loose in your pockets. They can get really, really hot, and then again, they're not going to work properly. So room temperature, out of direct sunlight, carry them around in a pill box if you're out and about. Don't open your capsules and sprinkle directly onto your food. So don't sprinkle it on your fish and chips, because the heat from your meal will probably stop those enzymes working again. And more importantly, it's going to make your food taste horrible. So if you're taking your enzymes correctly and you are storing them correctly, but they're not working, you're still getting symptoms of malabsorption, it might be worth seeing if you can increase your dose of enzymes. So I will speak with patients about increasing their dose, and we normally recommend an increase of 1 to 2 capsules per meal, per snack, per nourishing drink, up until the point that those symptoms of malabsorption have resolved. So rather than, some people might need a very small dose, so 2 or 3 capsules of the main meal, and some people might need many more capsules of the main meal, and that's okay. If your tablets still aren't working, you're still getting symptoms of malabsorption, it might be worth checking with your GP if you need a PPI, which is a type of medication that will help to change the acidity in your stomach, and this can help the PERT tablets to work better. So a common one is omeprazole, which you may have heard of, and you may just need to take these alongside your PERT tablets to make sure that they're working properly. If you are taking all your tablets properly, they're stored properly, you're taking a PPI but they still don't work, it might be worth seeing with your GP whether you can switch to an alternative enzyme. And sometimes we see that people will tolerate certain brands better than they tolerate others, so it might be worth switching. So enzymes are not needed when you have a single portion of fruit. So if you're having a bowl of strawberries, for example, you wouldn't need PERT with this. But if you're having strawberries with cream, then you'll need to take PERT to help with the absorption of the fat that's in your cream there. If you're having any sugary sweets, then you don't need to take any PERT with those, so things like marshmallows or jelly babies. Tea or coffee with just a drop of milk in, you don't need to take any PERT with that. Same with water, squash, fizzy drinks, alcohol, you don't need to take PERT with those. And if you've missed a meal, you don't need to take PERT either. The common questions that I get asked when I'm speaking with somebody about PERT include the following. So can I overdose? So if somebody has pancreatic cancer and they're prescribed PERT, there's no upper limit to the amount of those PERT tablets they can take. What we're aiming for is that they are taking the correct dose so that they are absorbing their nutrients properly, their stools are formed, their weight loss has stopped, or they've started to gain weight. And this could be, it might mean taking several tablets per meal and several with each snack, but that's absolutely fine. We can't overdose on them. Should I follow a low-fat diet? So remember, fat in our diet provides lots and lots of calories and lots of flavour. It's one of those macronutrients that provide lots of calories and lots of flavour. Following a low-fat diet would be taking out one of those macronutrients, which is really, really important. So you'd be reducing the calories, and then you're speeding up the path towards malnutrition there. But when I've talked with patients and they say, I don't eat fat in my diet because I get really unpleasant symptoms of malabsorption, such as oily, greasy, pale, yellow stools, very difficult to flush away, and lots of urgency. And that is because of the malabsorption of the fat. And when they take the fat out of the diet, they no longer get those symptoms. But we know if you're malabsorbing one of the macronutrients, you're going to be malabsorbing the other macronutrients as well. So you'll be malabsorbing carbs and your protein as well. So if you're malabsorbing all your macronutrients, you're going to be becoming more malnourished quickly. So what we do is include fat in the diet and just make sure you're taking enough enzymes to absorb the macronutrients. If I don't snack, I won't have as many to take. Absolutely, if somebody isn't eating, then they don't need to take PERT tablets. However, one of our aims is to build strength as much as possible. So to build up your strength for your upcoming treatment and for your quality of life. So rather than avoiding snacking to avoid taking tablets, what we do is recommend that you eat regularly if you can and include your PERT tablets to ensure the absorption of those nutrients. Do they contain animal products? They do contain animal products. They contain pork products. And this can be quite difficult if somebody doesn't eat pork as part of their religion, or if they choose not to eat animal products, so vegans or vegetarians. So in this instance, what we would do is speak with the person who chooses not to eat the animal products in their diet and discuss the pros and cons of taking or not taking the PERT and whether they could find it acceptable to take them. We know that the prescribable PERT medication are the ones that are proven to work and they're effective. Other ones that you can buy haven't been proven to work. So I don't recommend at all that you take those, take the ones that have been prescribed. For somebody who doesn't eat pork as part of their religion, because PERT medication is a life-saving medication, it is usually accepted by the religion that they can take these tablets. But if you've got any concerns, speak with your religious leader. I don't have symptoms of malabsorption. Do I need to take PERT? So if somebody has pancreatic cancer, they're likely to be malabsorbing to some degree. But the pancreas is very clever in that it work really hard up until the point of about 10% capacity, and it doesn't give you those symptoms of malabsorption until very late on. But you're still likely to be malabsorbing to some degree. So if you've been prescribed PERT, you should still take it and just be aware of those symptoms of malabsorption. So bloating, abdominal pain, feeling full very quickly, urgency, weight loss are all symptoms of malabsorption. I forgot my PERT with my meal. Should I take it now? I would normally say it depends on whereabouts or how long after your meal. So if you're at the end of your meal, I'd say just take your PERT dose then, and then just next time try and take it at the start or through your meal. If it's anything more than about 20 to 30 minutes after, I normally say, don't worry this time, but try and figure out how you can remember next time. So whether that's setting an alarm or getting a significant other to remind you, or putting your PERT capsules in front of the TV if that's where you eat, or on the table or next to the fridge. Figure out how you can remember next time, because remember what we're trying to do is build your strength as much as possible, and taking your PERT is important to absorb all those nutrients. So the pancreas also has an important role in managing blood glucose levels. So the pancreas also produces hormones, and one of those is insulin. And insulin is important in that it acts almost like a key, allowing our body to use the nutrients that have been absorbed. So when we absorb our nutrients, sometimes with the help of PERT, then those nutrients, the single sugars that are absorbed, will then be in your bloodstream ready to be used. The insulin acts like a key to allow this sugar to enter into the cells so it can be used by the body as fuel. In pancreatic cancer, what we can see is that sometimes enough insulin isn't made anymore due to damage to those cells. So rather than the sugars being let into the cells to be utilized, the sugars just stay in the bloodstream. And this can lead to a diagnosis of type 3C diabetes because of high blood sugar levels. And type 3C diabetes, if left unmanaged, can make your malnutrition worse because the sugars are sitting in the bloodstream and aren't able to be used by your body. So again, your body has to use its own stores of fuel. And symptoms of high blood sugar include peeing very frequently, especially overnight, feeling very, very thirsty, having non-healing wounds or recurrent UTIs, and then overall weight loss. And be aware that when you're started on PERT, this could unmask type 3C diabetes. Because now that you're absorbing the nutrients from your food, but if you don't have enough insulin, the nutrients can't be let into the cells, that's going to lead to your high blood sugar levels. So if you've been started on PERT, be aware of the symptoms of high blood sugar. And if you're getting any other symptoms, get in touch with your GP. And the way that type 3C diabetes is managed is with medication, so whether that's oral or injectable, regular monitoring of blood glucose levels, potentially some dietary changes, but restriction is inappropriate in people who are malnourished. So people, if they have pancreatic cancer and they're malnourished, then dietary restriction is not appropriate. So medication dose should always be altered to match your oral intake. So if somebody with pancreatic cancer is eating really well, but their blood sugars are high, what we would not want to do is restrict what they're eating. What we really want to do is just match that medication to what they're eating to make sure that their blood sugars are acceptable, but they still continue to eat well, because we want you to be eating as well as possible to build your strength. So if you remember, as a dietitian with pancreatic cancer, what I'm aiming for is to build somebody's strength, to build up their strength for upcoming treatment, so chemotherapy or surgery, and with a focus on quality of life. And I do this through speaking with patients about the PERT, which we've gone through already, but making sure that they can eat and drink as well as possible. We know that pancreatic cancer can affect your appetite. Taking PERT may help with your appetite. And I speak with patients about optimizing the amount of calories and protein that they can get into their diet to build their strength as much as possible. So generally, my dietary recommendations are eat anything. We want you eating regularly if possible, but there's absolutely no restrictions on what you're allowed to eat. Anything goes. Really aiming for 3 meals, 2 snacks, and a pint of nourishing fluids like milk every day if possible. Some choices are more nourishing than others. And remember those macronutrients. Carbohydrates provide energy. Protein helps to build strength and is important for wound healing, so following a surgery, for example. So trying to include at least 2 to 3 portions of protein every single day is really important. The fat helps to add flavour and lots of extra calories, so add fat wherever you can do. Enriching or fortifying foods is a good way of adding lots of extra calories in, which we'll go through on the next slide. And some people need nutritional supplement drinks. These are really good ways of adding extra calories and protein into your diet in a liquid form if you feel that you can't manage a full meal. But be aware that all nutritional supplement drinks, whether they are juice-based or whether they are milk-based, they will require PERT. So treat them as a snack and take your snack dose of PERT in every nutritional supplement drink. So the process of adding additional calories and protein is enriching or fortifying foods. So what we recommend is always choosing full fat options, so full fat milk, yogurt, cheese. Where possible, add extra calories and protein. So using things like skimmed milk powder, so sprinkling into porridge, into puddings, into mashed potatoes for extra calories and protein. Adding butter or double cream into things like the mashed potato, or a handful of grated cheese in a bowl of soup will make a not very nourishing meal into a much more nourishing meal with extra calories and extra protein. Could you add condensed milk, honey, yogurt, dried fruit onto things like cereal and yogurt? Every little really does help with enriching your foods. So I've got an example here of 2 days worth of foods. We've got a standard day, day A, and a fortified food day, which is day B. So if you quickly look at the differences, so on day B, we're using whole milk, we're adding skim milk powder, double cream into porridge, adding butter and cheese rather than biscuits as a snack, grated cheese into soup. We're using fortified mash with our shepherd's pie, and choosing a higher protein yogurt rather than a low fat one, adding peanut butter onto our toast, and then choosing nourishing fluids, so fruit juice, milky coffees rather than a coffee with just a dash of milk in it, meat-based drinks that's got additional protein compared to others. And what we can see with this food fortification is that we are doubling the amount of calories and doubling the amount of protein that someone's eating without physically having to double the volume of food that they're eating. Every little really does help. The British Dietetic Association have a really good food fact sheet on malnutrition, which will give you more ideas on enriching and fortifying your foods. So if you visit the British Dietetic Association website, then that will give you a few more tips. So we know that with pancreatic cancer, your treatment can come with some unpleasant side effects. If you're feeling nauseous, an empty stomach can make it worse. Try some plain foods to get some food in. Cold foods might be better tolerated. If you can avoid cooking smells, so go for a walk when food's prepared, or get a takeaway if you can. Cold fizzy drinks might help, or foods that are quite salty, or foods that have got ginger in them might help with the nausea. Choose nourishing drinks between meals, so milk, milkshake, soup, fruit juice, rather than tea and coffee that's not particularly nourishing. Taste changes tend to improve over time, so if you've tried something and don't like it, try it again in a few weeks. Try new foods that you might normally avoid. Cold foods might be a little bit easier to manage, or try different drinks rather than your tea and coffee if they're tasting a bit odd. So meat can sometimes taste quite bitter, so could you add a sauce to cover that taste, so barbecue sauce or sweet and sour, or add a chutney, a salsa, or mustard. If your meat is still quite difficult, then choose other protein sources, so egg, cheese, fish, pulses, lentils. Don't avoid your protein foods, but choose alternatives. Using strong or very sharp flavors can help get your saliva going, which can be really helpful. So things like lemon or pickles or vinegar, spices can help you to enjoy your food a little bit better. And then if your food is tasting metallic, try using plastic or wooden cutlery, or use wooden cooking implements if you can. If your mouth is very dry, then sip frequently, ideally nourishing fluids if you can. Could be stuck on ice lollies, frozen grapes. Use sauces with your food, so gravy, custard, cream if you can. Using mouthwash will help, but we know that caffeine, alcohol, and smoking will make the dry mouth worse. So try and avoid these if you can. Artificial saliva can be really, really useful. So if you are getting a dry mouth, speak with your GP about prescription of artificial saliva. And we know if somebody with pancreatic cancer is struggling with their appetite, it can be really, really emotionally challenging for them. You know, eating is a daily activity. We can't get away from it. It's often very social. There's concerns about not eating the correct foods. There's concern about not eating enough of the foods. And there's often pressure from well-meaning family and friends about eating enough. So try and be realistic with your goals. Eating even a small amount can be a really good achievement. And think about what your end goal is. If somebody is trying to build their strength very quickly for surgery, their end goal will be quite different to somebody who is focusing more on quality of life. So some gentle support and encouragement from family and friends can be really helpful. So offering support by using things like the food fortification tips and a little bit of a gentle encouragement is a good way of encouraging without adding lots of extra pressure. Activities can help to build a bit of strength and build your appetite as well. So could you go for a potter around the garden, a little walk around the block? Could you do some dancing with your significant other or the grandkids? Anything to get you moving and help to build your appetite might help. And then on the days where you're feeling well, take advantage. There's going to be days where you feel great and there's going to be days where you don't feel so great. So on those good days, really take advantage of what you're able to eat. So practically little and often tends to work quite well. So small amounts quite frequently through the day can be useful. Eat what you want whenever you want. So if you wake up and you want a pizza for breakfast, have a pizza for breakfast. If you wake up at 4 a.m. and you want an ice cream sundae, have an ice cream sundae. No food is off the table, so have whatever you want whenever you want. All calories count. Just remember to take your PERT with it. Food presentation can help. I can't promise that Mr. Ramsay will be around, but making foods look good on the plate can help somebody to eat a little bit better. Freeze individual portions so they're easily accessible and easy to heat up if somebody is fancying something quite quickly. And then consider whether nutritional supplement drinks might be useful. So whether these are prescribed, bought or homemade, they can all offer lots of extra calories and protein if you're struggling with your food. An example of a homemade supplement would be whole milk with a scoop of ice cream, add some skimmed milk powder into this, add some other milkshake powder for flavour or some frozen berries for flavour, and then sip this throughout the day. And that's a really good way of getting lots of extra calories in and lots of extra protein in that you wouldn't normally have. So finally, on to the myth busting section, which is very quick. So the internet can be very, very helpful, but it can also be quite damaging. And there's lots of things bandied about on the internet. And one of those things is sugar feeds cancer. And this is a myth. So I'll try and explain it. It can be quite complex, but essentially sugar is critical for all cells. So whenever we break our carbohydrates down, they're broken into single sugars for absorption. And that sugar is glucose. And every cell in our body will use glucose for energy. Now, cancer cells also use glucose for energy, and they use the glucose very, very quickly because cancer cells will divide and grow very quickly compared to a healthy cell. But if we stop eating sugar, our body is very clever and it can make glucose from our stores. So even if we take glucose out of our diet, our body will still make it because all of our cells need glucose. And we can't tell our bodies to only give glucose to our healthy cells. It's going to make the glucose and it'll be used by all the cells, whether that is a healthy cell or a cancerous cell. So don't avoid sugar in your diet, include it. It can be really helpful for making food taste really good. And it can provide lots of extra calories as well. So do include sugar in your diet. I should only eat organic fruit and veggies, as pesticides used in non-organic can increase cancer risk. This is also a myth. The organic fruit and veggies tend to use fewer pesticides, and very, very high levels of pesticides may cause cancer in animals. But levels much, much, much lower than these are used as pesticides. And there's no evidence that a small amount of pesticides that may be ingested increases cancer risk. And there's no evidence that organic foods will affect cancer risk at all. So if you choose organic, then go for it if that's what you would normally have. But don't feel that you have to go for organic if you don't normally choose those. And then taking supplements such as wormwood, reishi extract and chaga mushroom extract daily will reduce my risk of cancer developing, is also a myth. So I Googled supplement tablets to take with pancreatic cancer. And the first website said that all of these supplement tablets were essential to take if somebody had pancreatic cancer. So I've not heard of any of these. And along with each of these tablets that you have to take, according to this website, came a nice hefty price tag, which worked out at £1,600 a year. And in addition to the hefty price tag, there is no evidence that these supplements will affect your cancer risk or affect your growth of your cancer, and they might actually interfere with your treatment that you're having. So just be aware of where you're getting your information from. The internet can be great, but it can also be quite damaging. So use reputable information sources, so specialist nurses, dietitian, GP, the Pancreatic Cancer UK website. Use the support line if you've got any questions. Go to the British Dietetic Association for any food-related queries, or the NHS. So to conclude, malabsorption causes malnutrition. Malabsorption is well managed by taking PERT correctly. Dietary restriction is not appropriate in people who are malnourished. Enriching foods will increase calories and protein. So go to the British Dietetic Association website and look for the food fact sheet on malnutrition for extra information on fortifying your foods. And use reputable information sources. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks, Rachel. Brilliant to hear all that. So much in there, and yes, but really great stuff and really practical stuff that I'm sure people will find really, really beneficial. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, the Q&A is busy, so that's good to see. Please keep them coming if you would like to ask questions of Rachel. We're gonna certainly make her work hard, I think. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, some of them are similar queries, and some of them were actually asked before you started talking. So I imagine a lot of them will have been answered, but it might be good just to recap things.
Yep.
So we'll start off. There are quite a few dosing questions about dosage, about Creon or PERT. I think there's 4 of those similar ones, so we can probably group those together. So I'll just read them though. One is, my mum is worried about taking too many Creon tablets and having to get more orders from pharmacy. And this is a good question. How would you phrase that it really doesn't matter how many you take? Her dietitian only suggested 2 with a main meal. So I'll read the others first, if that's all right, Rachel.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one is, I take Creon capsules 25,000 units each meal. Doesn't say how many per meal, and yet I feel sick. Should I vary it or increase the dose slightly? Probably have forgotten the first question by the time we get to the end of them. And there's there's another person. Sorry, I'm just looking at scrolling down. My mum is on 25,000 units of Creon. How do you manage how many tablets to take? She's only taking 1 tablet for each meal. But what triggers increasing the dose?
Okay. So I would think about the symptoms of malabsorption. So if somebody is getting symptoms of malabsorption, so loose, oily, pale, yellow stools, difficult to flush, abdominal pain when eating, feeling full very quickly, be aware of those symptoms. Some people don't get many symptoms of malabsorption, so they might just be getting weight loss and feel fine, but they continue to lose weight even though they are eating well. So if you're getting any of those symptoms of malabsorption, that would trigger an increase in your dose. We start a starting dose for people with pancreatic cancer. We start on 3 times 25,000 unit capsules per meal, and 2 with a snack, 2 with a nourishing drink, 2 with a nutritional supplement. So if you're on any less than this, I would probably think about whether it's worth chatting with your GP to up that dose. For the person who mentioned nausea, when they're taking PERT, taking their Creon, I would probably think about trying to up that dose as well, because when somebody's not taking enough Creon, then what they can get is nausea. But when they're on the optimal dose, that nausea can resolve. If you have increased your dose, but you're still getting quite nauseous, then probably chat with your GP about trialing an alternative tablet. So not Creon, try one of the others like Nutrizyme, for example. That might help to get rid of the nausea, just because you might tolerate it a little bit better. And in terms of how to phrase it for your mum, I presume that you mean that you want to encourage your mum to take enough tablets to absorb what she's taking. So speak with her about the symptoms of malabsorption and reassure her that if somebody has pancreatic cancer, there isn't an upper limit to the amount of tablets that they can take. So you can't overdose on them. So what we're aiming for is to resolve those symptoms of malabsorption. So no further weight loss, regain if you can, no oily, greasy stools, formed normal stools is what we're after, and no bloating or discomfort with eating. So if she's getting any of those symptoms, then reassure her that she can increase the dose and there's no upper limit. Does that cover everything?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, isn't it? And often people are worried about taking too much and they have symptoms of malabsorption, and they sometimes think that's as a result of taking Creon, but actually it's the opposite way around. They're just perhaps not taking enough.
Yeah, exactly.
There was actually another question which is on a very similar vein, which was Dad was told to take 1 Creon for a snack and 2 or 3 for a meal. However, he has lost quite a lot of weight since then, and we wonder whether he's taking enough. Nobody really explained to him what Creon does, and I think that's a really important point, that people need to understand it, don't they? On one of the Facebook groups I'm in, people talk about taking a lot more Creon than that every day. And the question is, how do you know if you're getting the right dose? So I think we've covered that, haven't we?
Yeah, so look for your symptoms of malabsorption. Don't be afraid to speak with your GP about upping the dose. Remember, our minimum dose is normally 3 with a meal. but people can take many more with meals. But also remember that people are very different. Some people need a really small dose, some need a much larger dose. So whilst these Facebook groups can be quite helpful in some veins, they can be a little bit, it can be a bit difficult if someone's very unsure about how they're getting on with things like Creon. So just be aware of that as well.
Great, thank you. So we've got a question here. What sort of food helps with constipation?
So if you can, try and make sure that you're eating plenty of foods that got fibre in. So choose whole grains if you can. So things like whole grain bread, cereals, rice, pasta. Include fruits and veggies if you can, because they've got some fibre in, which helps to bulk up your stool, which makes it easier to move through the bowel. If you make sure that you're drinking plenty of water as well and being quite active, because lots of fluid and getting and being up and moving can help your bowel to keep moving. Also, eating quite regularly is important in keeping your bowel active and getting everything moving through. So try and make sure that you're eating well as possible. What I would say is don't reduce your Creon dose to manage your constipation. That's really important because we need to make sure that you're absorbing all your nutrients. So continue to take your PERT dose that you've been prescribed. And if you're really struggling with constipation, then take a laxative. Speak with your GP about a laxative. A regular gentle laxative could be really, really helpful.
Great. Okay, we have a question about chemotherapy, or what it says when you say eat anything. I guess we still need to go with the advice on what you can't eat during chemotherapy.
Okay. Is there anything else on the question?
No, there isn't. No, I mean, this one, yeah, we wouldn't think specifically of, or me personally can't think of very specific foods that we would say you can't have or off limits during chemotherapy. Perhaps there might be kind of spicy foods and things like that that you might want to avoid. Obviously, I know going through chemo, you can have a lot of taste changes and things.
Yeah. So yeah, same. There's nothing that we would particularly say avoid. The only thing that I could think of would be if somebody's on chemotherapy and they're immunocompromised, then they shouldn't take live products. So things like live yogurt or kefir, things like that have got live bacteria in them, because that's not particularly helpful. If somebody's immunocompromised, they might pick up an infection from that. But otherwise, anything goes really. As if you are eating, if you're eating well during chemo, that's great, and there's nothing really that is off the table.
Great. And then we've got two slightly similar questions, so I'll group those together. The first is, my relative's oncologist won't prescribe him PERT because he says he doesn't have diarrhea and therefore doesn't have malabsorption. His gastroenterologist said that pancreatic cancer doesn't affect the functioning of the pancreas, so it doesn't need them. Any suggestions for how to get them prescribed? And then symptoms are weight loss, bloating, gas, and could an NHS dietitian help to get them? And then a question that's slightly similar is there any information that can be given to doctors or pharmacists about allowing patients to have more Creon? I suppose this is slightly connected. They are sometimes very funny about letting people have more if they think you are taking too much.
Yeah. So I'll answer that one first. There's a bit of a drive at the minute about educating GP practices and pharmacists to increase the awareness that PERT isn't a specific dose for everything. You know, if somebody is eating 3 meals a day, 2 snacks, and having 4 milky drinks a day, they will need many more tablets than somebody who's having only a couple of meals a day. And it's difficult because with the dose being quite changeable, but there is a big drive on educating GPs and pharmacists at the minute. What I would say, and I know it's not particularly helpful, is just keep pestering and say, I know that I have to take medication every time I eat and every time I'm taking any nourishing fluids. My appetite is good and I want to eat this many times a day, but I'm restricted at the minute because I don't have enough PERT tablets and I want to build my strength. And I'd just keep pestering the GP to try and get them to up that prescription, because it's so important that you continue to eat well, drink your nourishing fluids and get your PERT to go alongside it. But there is a drive. We appreciate that that's quite difficult at the minute. With the first question, it sounds like you've got that sounds like you're in a really challenging position, because it sounds like you've clearly got some symptoms of malabsorption. So even if you don't have diarrhea, you're getting bloating, abdominal pain, weight loss, and these are all symptoms of malabsorption. And somebody doesn't need to get all of the symptoms, they don't need to tick all the boxes before they're prescribed PERT. I think the NICE guidelines do recommend that anybody with pancreatic cancer should be prescribed PERT. So I wouldn't be afraid to speak with your oncologist or your gastroenterologist and say, this is what the NICE guidelines say. I want my PERT to make sure I can absorb my nutrients, and these are my symptoms of malabsorption, despite the fact that I'm not getting greasy oily stools, I'm getting all of these other symptoms, and I'm becoming malnourished. So you have to be a little bit, yeah, you have to try and push your way into getting your PERT there, but it sounds like you really need it, so good luck.
Oh, thanks for that. And also just to highlight as well that we on our website, on the Pancreatic Cancer UK website, which I know we've talked a lot about this evening, there we have a PERT hub now, which is for health professionals, and there's all sorts of information on PERT and how to manage it, dosage, and I suppose the reasons behind it. On there, we've also got a PERT course that health professionals can undertake. So I appreciate it can be difficult trying to talk to a health professional as a patient in that capacity. But yeah, as Rachel says, we would encourage you to do that, because these are really important. We do have lots of people contact the support line who are in a similar position, and often we might email somebody something that they can print out and actually take to their GP. And to be honest, that kind of does the trick most of the time when they know they're speaking to people that understand it you know, really well and have a lot of experience. Then that can make all the difference. Sorry, I realised I should have said that we have somebody joining by phone, and I forgot to mention that if whoever that is, or I don't know if it's one person or more people, if you do want to ask a question, then please do that. You should be able to raise your hand. You'll have been given instructions when you join by phone on how to do that. So yes, please do, and we'll look out for that raised hand, and then we would unmute you and you can ask the question that you want to. So yeah, please do feel to participate in that way if you'd like. Okay, moving on. Okay, so if I still have to eat fat, should I be avoiding saturated fat or focusing on plant-based fat?
I would say no. I am very encouraging including saturated fat within your diet if somebody has pancreatic cancer, because these are often foods that we all really enjoy. You know, who doesn't enjoy a slice of cake or a bit of ice cream or chocolate bar or a bit of butter on their bread? So I know that from a heart health point of view, that saturated fat are not helpful, and from that point of view, it would be a plant-based fat. But I think it's important to think about what is the priority right now, and eating well, building your strength for your treatment, whether that be surgery or chemotherapy, or maintaining your quality of life. That is the priority for right now, rather than the impact that saturated fat may have on your heart health. So no, I wouldn't say avoid saturated fats, include them as much as you would like to, because they can be very helpful in getting lots of calories in and helping to build your strength.
Great, thank you. Okay, and we have another one. Are there any blood tests which indicate malnourishment? For example, vitamin or mineral tests, which a GP or oncologist could do?
It's very difficult to say whether if you have some bloods taken that they will identify whether you're malnourished. You know, everybody's very different, and everybody's blood results will be very different. What I would say is if you have if you do have a blood test taken by your GP, they should include probably your vitamin D status, because that would be a good indicator of whether you are absorbing your fat soluble vitamins. Vitamin D is one of those. And we should all be taking a supplement of vitamin D anyway, so you could include that as part of your daily routine. But no, there isn't a specific test for malnutrition. Think about whether you have lost weight, whether you're getting symptoms of malabsorption, think about the time frame which you've lost weight, and think about whether, if you're eating well and you are losing weight, are you becoming malnourished? That will be a better indicator rather than a blood test.
Okay, thanks. And we have a question about diabetes. I thought there was a couple of questions about diabetes, but I think I can only spot one now. So somebody's asked, what about sugar if I have diabetes? I think the other question in relation to diabetes, which seems to have disappeared, was around about if you have symptoms of malabsorption and diabetes, what should be the priority, or what should you focus on, which is a good question.
It's quite difficult when there's lots of things going on, like malabsorption and then diabetes as well. They're both equally important, because we know if they're both left unmanaged, then they can both lead to malnutrition or exacerbate your malnutrition. In that case, I think it would be managing both as a priority, so make sure that you're absorbing your nutrients, so getting your correct PERT dose, but speaking with your doctor or oncologist to make sure that you have been able to manage your blood sugar levels with the correct medication, so either oral or usually more frequently is injectable medication, so insulin. But I think they're both a priority. In terms of sugars, it's a bit of a difficult one, because we know that if someone's eating lots and lots of sugars, so free sugar, so things like having spoonfuls of sugar, then that can be absorbed very quickly and cause an increase in your blood sugar levels. But I wouldn't say avoid sugar in your diet. What I would try and do, if you can, is speak with your doctor about getting your medication well matched to manage your blood sugar levels, so you can still continue to eat well. If you're really concerned about including sugars in your diet, then what I would say is continue with all of your carbohydrates as standard. They would always be included within your diet, so we want you to carry on with those. Never restrict those, because they're a really good source of energy. Additional sugar, so things like jam or honey, if they're eaten with a meal, then they'll get mixed in with everything that you're already eating, and it will slow the absorption of that, and they will have less of an impact on your blood sugars. Same with if you're having a pudding. If you have a dessert straight after your meal rather than waiting a little while, again, it'll get mixed with all your food, and it won't affect your blood sugars in such a spiky way. It will just increasing gradually, which is what we'd normally see. So think about the timings of your sugar if you are concerned about your sugars, but generally it would be more of a focus for me on getting your medication to be matched to what you're eating to manage your sugar levels.
Great. And someone's just asked, can a regular blood test pick up diabetes? I think they're possibly referring here to a HbA1c. So yeah, do you want to answer that, Rachel, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just be aware of the symptoms of high blood sugars, but yeah, you can take that if you.
Well, yeah, we would expect anybody that has, or we would hope that anybody that has pancreatic cancer to be monitored for diabetes. So most commonly, HbA1c will be done at follow-up. And it's also good to be aware of the symptoms of diabetes, so particularly weight loss, fatigue, headaches, feeling lightheaded, passing water more frequently, those sorts of things. Sometimes there might also be a case for, instead of doing a HbA1c, doing an oral glucose tolerance test. We know that that's a very effective test in diagnosing type 3C diabetes. So yes, those tests should be done as part of regular follow-up, but it's also being aware of what those symptoms are, and seeking help if you're concerned about diabetes. Someone's asked about about proton pump inhibitors. A couple of people, one person said, could you please go through PPIs? And then another person's asked, is lansoprazole a proton pump inhibitor? And there's also another bit of that question, but I'll come back to that bit of the question in a minute.
Yeah, I will. I'll take that one. Yeah, lansoprazole, omeprazole, they're PPIs that are commonly used. And it's a tablet that you can take once or twice a day, depending on what your prescription is. And how it works is that it changes the acidity of the stomach, and it can stop your stomach being so acidic. If your stomach environment is very acidic, which everybody's are, because it helps to kill bacteria when we eat, what it could do is stop the PERT tablets from working properly because they're affected by that stomach acid. So by taking the PPI, then it just it stops that acidic environment being so acidic, which means that the enzymes might get to where they need to be for duty and to work better. Is there anything else to add there, Rachel, do you think?
No, I think that's spot on. Yeah. And then the person that has asked that is also asking something else as well. So, which again is a common thing that we hear about. What do you suggest for non-dairy diet for someone who's post-surgery and has type 3C diabetes, and they're finding that milk and milk products cause more issues? There's actually a similar question that somebody's asked, which says, wheat seems to be causing bloating and milk or lactose seems to be a problem. I am losing weight and I'm struggling to find a supplement that I can tolerate. Milky ones and those containing a high amount of glucose seem to cause diarrhea, and the latest one called Vita Savory contains wheat and milk, so cause bloating and diarrhea. Can you suggest a different one? Quite a bit in there. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It sounds like you've got quite a lot going on with that. I would think about whether the bloating was already there or whether this is a new thing. Are you prescribed PERT? Do you need to start taking PERT? Is the bloating more to do with malabsorption rather than wheat or dairy specifically? It's quite difficult to answer that without knowing exactly what's going on. You could try some alternative vegan supplements, maybe, that are available. You have to buy them in health food shops. I know that the ones that are the supplement drinks that are prescribed can be a little bit difficult to tolerate, but there's lots of different types out there that you can that are drinks, but also you can mix with your foods, so powders that you can mix with your foods, and they might be helpful. And if you're affected with the bloating or the diarrhea when you are drinking it all in one go, could you space the drink out throughout the day? Would that help with your symptoms? You could try that. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Sorry, I think it might have it gets moved when we start answering it. So it might have
dairy, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So non-dairy affecting symptoms. I mean, it depends what your symptoms are. Again, it would be, are you taking your PERT with what you're eating? Is this a new thing? If it is new, then potentially there could be another reason for whatever your symptoms are. Non-dairy, choose soya options. Make sure that if you're using things like rice or almond milk, that they are supplemented with calcium. Sorry, big brain. And you can include sources of protein in your diet as well. So make sure that you're getting plenty of course with meat, fish, eggs as well. I hope that's answered it.
Great. Okay, I'm just aware that we haven't got loads of time, so I'm just trying to go through. Fantastic to have loads of questions, and hopefully we can get back to people. We'll not be able to cover everybody's questions, but hopefully we can get back to you with some answers. There's one person that's asked, and this question's been there a little while, so I'll choose this one. So I had neuroendocrine cancer of the pancreas, 2 tumours. and I had a Whipple's and a distal pancreatectomy and splenectomy 4 years ago, and 40% of my pancreas was left behind. Are there blood tests to measure if I'm now producing enough pancreatic enzymes?
No, not that I'm aware of. There are tests to check for whether somebody is making enzymes, or whether they are malabsorbing to some degree. But these wouldn't be helpful, because we know that if you've had a surgery, that your pancreas wouldn't be working at 100% effectiveness anyway, because part of your pancreas is being removed. So rather than thinking about a test for whether you're making enough enzymes, be aware of those symptoms of malabsorption. I think that will be the thing you'd need to focus on to determine whether you are making enough enzymes to absorb your nutrients effectively.
Great. We'll take one more, if that's all right. We've had a couple of questions about vegan food supplements, and what vegan food supplements can I take, or what vegan food should I eat?
Okay. I mean, any vegan foods are absolutely fine. Just try and make sure that you are including plenty of protein, so plant-based proteins, so things like pulses, beans, plenty of nuts if you can, tofu. Make sure that you're getting plenty of protein in that way. I don't know whether you were vegan before or whether this is quite a new thing. Think about whether it's completely appropriate to change into a vegan diet now, if this is quite a new switch. Remember, we're trying to get you as strong as possible, and choosing foods that you really enjoy, whether that be vegan or non-vegan foods, is really, really important. If you've always been vegan, make sure that you are getting enough B12 in, so you can get nutritional use that provides some B12. But there's no particular foods that you have to avoid, or things that I would particularly recommend. Just make sure you get enough protein foods in, and make sure that you are choosing foods that are, again, supplemented with calcium, to make sure that you're getting enough calcium in.
Great. I'll do one more. That's all right. And then some of the other nurses are busy trying to reply to people. And yeah, if we don't get back to everybody, if you've answered the question with your name, then we'll be able to do that. Or if you've asked a question anonymously, then please do consider giving our support line a call, and we can talk in much more detail with you, and we'd be more than happy to do that. So the final one I'll take is I've gained lots of weight and am now overweight. Should I try to lose weight? I have incurable pancreas cancer with liver metastases.
I would think about what your priority is right now. I think if you want to lose weight, if you feel that you want to lose weight just to feel a little healthier and a little bit more like yourself, then I think that would be okay, as long as it's in a healthy way. So rather than restricting what you're eating, maybe just including a little bit more activity if you can manage that. But overall, I would think about what your main aim is. And I think quality of life is so important. So if you're finding that you're eating really well and you're enjoying what you're eating, I would be really reluctant to restrict that, because I have such a focus on quality of life and enjoyment. And I think that would probably be, one of my main priorities. So enjoying. If you do want to drop a touch of weight, then, like I say, include a little bit more activity. But it wouldn't be something that I would really be focusing too much on if it's not hugely important to you.
Yeah, that's good. I think as well, it's important to know if there are any other reasons why that person may be gaining weight. So yeah, that would be good to consider. We know that sometimes patients can develop things like ascites, particularly with spread of disease to the liver. So obviously, yeah, we don't have that information, but yeah, there might be other reasons why you would have gained weight, or is this something that's happened just quite quickly, or yeah. And I guess it's the importance of muscle as well, over fat. And we know that one of the big things is that people with pancreatic cancer lose muscle. So sometimes that's the thing to think about and to focus on. Okay, that's wonderful. Thanks so much, Rachel.
I hope it's been helpful for some people, and it's been a really nice opportunity to be able to do this. So I hope it's been useful.
Oh, indeed, it has. It's been great. Thank you so much. I'll just find my little sheet of paper. Yeah, so yeah, massive thanks to Rachel for that fantastic presentation and the great Q&A, and thanks to everybody for joining and asking lots of questions. That's great. So just as we close, just to say again about the PERT campaign, if you would like to sign the petition, that would be wonderful. So yeah, thanks again for joining. We hope you find it useful. When you leave the webinar, you'll be taken to an anonymous feedback survey, and we'll be really grateful if you could fill this out. It'll only take a few minutes, and it's really helpful for us, so we can improve future events. So thank you so much for joining, and yeah, we do hope that we can be in touch with you again. Okay, bye for now.